So I was standing in front of the hospital and I'd just made a decision that was more life-changing than the life or death decision itself. The pressure wasn't coming from the tennis ball size growth on my thyroid. It was coming from an even bigger dis-ease, that of indecision. You see, 4 months earlier, I had been diagnosed with papillary thyroid cancer with an 8-centimetre growth wrapped around my thyroid, and I was deciding whether to have surgery or not. So if you've ever been in a situation where you've been making a decision and you've been thinking and thinking and thinking about what you should do, then you might get what I'm talking about here. So I was sitting on what I call the seesaw of indecision. I was weighing up these expectations and people-pleasing based on an external reality. And as I stood in front of the hospital, I recognized something. I realized that it actually didn't matter what decision I was about to make. What did matter was that it came from me. So I made a choice. I made a bold move. And that moment I claimed that bold decision, I felt a weight soften from my body. So I gracefully walked into the hospital and I thought that this was it. After a successful surgery, I was celebrating that life had other plans. I was lying in my bed 24 hours later and I received a text message firing me from my job. What I didn't realize then, and I realize now, is that that was a pivotal moment for me. That was a moment that I recognized that bold moves are a way to shape my own reality, that I was a designer of my own life. So I'd been given an opportunity right then for another bold move. I recognized that I had the power to change my reality through bold moves. So from having the courage to make a bold decision from myself earlier, I had set up a blueprint for myself to trust in my choices. So in that moment, I was offered another bold move. You see, I had started a jewelry label earlier that year, and I decided on my hospital bed to go all in on this jewelry brand. Then 9 years later, looking back, I had turned this handmade jewelry brand from a market stall brand to opening 2 retail stores in prominent tourist locations in Queensland, hiring large teams, and having my jewelry worn globally. So I wondered, how many dreams are being held back through indecision? How many dreams are hanging out on this seesaw of indecision based on the shoulds, the expectations of others, and people-pleasing? So it got me wondering, how much more life would be available if you could make your own bold decisions faster? How much of your life is being invested into thinking? And what else could you be doing with that life instead? How much more life would become available to you? Could you imagine? So the thing is, we have the capacity to change our reality in an instant. Stephen Covey talks about this in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. He states that 10% of your life is what happens to you, and 90% is how you react. Let's consider this. How many weeks do you have left to live? You see, on average, across countries like Australia and America, the average life expectancy is 80 years. So to work out how many weeks left you have to live, take your age and deduct it from 80, and then times it by 52. So if you are 30 years old now, you have 2,600 weeks left. If you are 60, you have 1,040 weeks left. What would you do with that time now that you know this? Imagine if you spent less time in your head and more time in your heart, designing that life you've always dreamed of. How much more life would you have? How many more gifts would you be able to bring to the world? So my grandma, who is 99 years old, has this saying. She says, procrastination is the thief of time. So imagine if we lived more like her and took a leaf from her book. Imagine the depth of life we'd be able to live. So how do you know that you're making a decision for you? How can you get out of your head if you've been wondering that? Well, this is when we come to the power of our inner yes, tuning into what's true for you. And when we can recognize our inner yes, this is your gateway, your doorway of refining the way you live your life. It's how you can start to create your own reality when you know what is true for you. So a bold move is your first step to changing your reality. So if you to trust yourself at a deeper way, how do you know what your yes is? How do you know what your decision is? Well, here's how. You see, when I stood in front of the hospital that day, I trusted my inner yes. I trusted myself so much that beyond the shoulds and the expectations of others, I heard me. So if you'd love to know how to hear you, come with me now on this very small exercise that will change the way you make decisions forever. So ask yourself a question that you know is a yes. For example, use your name. My name is Tegan, for example. And notice how that feels in your body. Notice if it feels brighter, lighter. And now ask yourself something that you know is a no. Notice how that feels. Maybe it's somebody else's name. As you blink open your eyes, take this with you. This is your compass of decision making. So whenever you find yourself on the seesaw of indecision, come back to that exercise. And remember to answer from your yes. So how long are you willing to wait? How long are you willing to wait for your life? And so all we have is right now. Martin Luther King Jr. said this: faith is taking a step before you even see the entire staircase. So what would it be like to have faith and take that step before you even see the stairs? How much courage would it take? This talk is about the courage and to have the vulnerability to truly trust yourself. So where in your life are you hesitating to take that step forward? And what if you did? I invite you to remember that life favors the bold. And you can always choose again. And if you took anything away from this talk, it is this one thing. You are only one step away, one bold move, one decision away from changing your entire reality. Thank you.